So, welcome to a very different In Conversation with WLV Doctoral College. I'm Deborah Curiton and I'm the Associate Professor of Equity in Learning and Teaching at the University of Wolverhampton, and I work in researcher development.
And I'm Dr. Ben Halligan. I'm Director of the Doctoral College at the University of Wolverhampton.
Today's vlog is going to be about something that's quite topical at the moment. We're going to be talking about the Online Viva voce. So during the current times, most universities, including the University of Wolverhampton, have started to run all of their Viva voces online. So all the participants are coming in from various different places to an online platform. Now, we'll see in the future whether or not this continues and whether this is the new normal. But we're going to talk about today some of the things that's important to think about if you're preparing for a Viva at the moment. So Ben, at the University of Wolverhampton, we've written a new process and a new guide, both for students and for examiners and chairs. So what would your tips be to begin with? Because you've kind of chaired quite a few of these Vivas, haven't you?
I've chaired 9 online Vivas over the last 4 weeks. We've written and talked a lot about Viva preparedness. Everything from making sure you've got a fully notated copy of the thesis and you've been through a mock Viva, to what to wear, what to eat, travel arrangements. So we've really talked at every level about this. And we've talked at it because doctoral researchers can't get enough of this kind of discussion because they always panic, as anybody would in the days before the Viva. And then I think it's often a matter of really coming to terms with the sense that you're going to have 2 or 3 hours of defending the thesis and you're going to have the outcome at the end of the Viva, so that this is a culmination of years of research and work, and anybody would be nervous in that situation. But as you said, Deborah, we've shifted Vivas to online platforms so that we can run Vivas virtually. Obviously, we've done that because of the current circumstances. Where some of our researchers don't want that, where they've asked for the Viva to occur in person, we've obviously allowed them to have that delay, and we'll hopefully get that together when we're all back together again. But I found generally that in terms of talking about postgraduate expectations and progression and what they want at the moment, they've really wanted dates to be hit, scheduled events to occur and things like that. So it's been very important to us to keep delivering Vivas as arranged, with the examiners on the date, with the outcome, with the maybe corrections beyond that and so forth. So this has been an interesting experience, and I think we're talking today a little bit about our experiences of it and what we would like to say to the candidate in terms of their preparing for an online Viva.
That's true. So a lot of universities are trying their best to make sure that the online Viva runs as closely as possible to what a face-to-face Viva would be, with the exception of every party coming in on a virtual platform. So at Wolverhampton, we're using a number of different platforms for Viva voces. So in some cases it's Teams. We're looking at both personal Skype and Skype for Business. Zoom is being used in some cases, and also some Vivas are taking place via Canvas. So each member of staff in the university has their own blank space in Canvas. So this is a really private space, and they can set up meetings that they invite people to. So there's nobody going to kind of wander past and wander in on those particular platforms. So some of the advice that we've been giving to students around preparation for Viva has been around sort of looking at those platforms and making sure that they feel comfortable and confident with using those platforms, that they understand how to switch on their webcam, how to turn on and off their microphone, how to kind of log in and log out, and to make sure that they feel confident with the platform that they're working on.
And in fact, part of that could be a dry run the day or two before to actually test everything is up and running and things like that. And for the chair, it would be a matter not only of testing it with the candidate, but also with the internal examiner, the external examiner, whoever else is involved. So I think that's an expectation. And if you're a bit nervous about whether Teams is going to work for you, then to make sure you request that test. At the same time, we've also made arrangements for backup platforms. We haven't ever used that, but if we're using Teams, we might check that Skype is a possibility as well in case something goes down.
Yeah, so in our planning, we've got a 3-stage process. So if, for instance, your first platform is Teams and something happens with Teams, the second platform will then be moved to, and if there's a technical problem with that, then we move on to a conference call, telephone call. So there is a substantial process around making sure that that the Viva continues regardless of platform failures and internet outages, to ensure that the Viva can be completed.
I mean, in terms of technical problems as we've had them so far, we've not had very many. I mean, I think the problems are more around Wi-Fi connections and losing the signal, so that various people have then frozen or been ejected. And as the chair, I've always said at the top of the Viva, if this happens, you know, we don't panic, we don't worry. We'll take the time we need to re-establish a connection, to bring everybody back together and so forth. So to that end, I've made sure that my phone number is given to all the parties. So if things really do go down, for example, if there's a power cut, they can call me up and we can see if we could reconvene an hour or so later. We have had a couple of problems, but it has been around, I think signal.
Yeah.
But in that case, I've just said, look, you know, if we're beginning at 2 o'clock, we have as long as we need. And in fact, in my experience, we have had the luxury of a bit more time. I mean, typically when a Viva runs, it may be that the external examiner is hoping to get a train at 6 or 7 or something like this and get home. So there may be some pressure on doing the paperwork at the end, but we don't have that pressure now. So we do have the time to sort out technical difficulties.
So there's the platform. Practicing using the platform is one of our tips. What else would you suggest, Ben?
I think in terms of preparing, I think it'd be important to make sure that you're in a space that you're comfortable with, where there isn't too much sound, where, you know, especially I think if you've got kids at home, that you've made all the arrangements so that you've actually got the quality space to deal with the Viva itself, and you don't have trucks thundering by outside. I think I did one Viva and there was a lot of getting up to shut windows and then it was too hot, so getting up to open them again, things like that. So I think a bit of work around what's going on.
Yeah.
In the space itself might be quite useful too. And then obviously, you know, you maybe would have a glass of water or a bottle of water or something, and the kind of standard things that you might have in terms of the Viva itself. If you have a copy of the thesis, like a hard printed copy, I would take that, because I think when the discussion is often around specifics of a certain page, a certain paragraph, it is quite difficult to juggle with a couple of screens, and you don't really want to be switching from some Word file or PDF to look at the thesis and then back to what they're saying at you and things like that. So if you have a hard copy, or if you can print one out, I think that's worth the trouble.
But it is important to remember there that if you haven't got a hard copy and you haven't got a second laptop or a tablet to be able to have the thesis open on, if you minimise the screen, you are still seen by the examiners. It's just you can't necessarily see the examiners. So first tip is practice the platform. Second tip is to prepare the area that you're going to have the Viva Voce in, to make sure that it's comfortable and that it's private. One of my tips would be, at Wolverhampton, we do ask that your supervisor comes in at the beginning of the beginning of the Viva, just to do an identity check. So maybe it's a good idea to kind of set up an online meeting with your supervisor for perhaps the half hour before the Viva, so that you've got somebody there to kind of support you and to kind of help you relax and focus on the strengths of your work, focus on helping you feel positive about the process. And so you've got a support there, because the one thing that you can't have at Wolverhampton is somebody else in the room with you. Your supervisor can stay in the Viva, should you wish them to, but they are asked to turn off their webcam and to turn off their microphone, so they can make the notes as they would normally do on your thesis, or note the questions or the themes of the conversation as they would normally do. However, they can't contribute to the conversation, and you won't be able to see them, because normally they would sit out of sight of you.
I think that's very important. I think as well for the end of the Viva. So after the Viva's finished in terms of the assessment element, you'll be asked to step out of the meeting room, and the examiners will then come to a decision. And that conversation might be 5-10 minutes. It could be an hour. So having someone there for you at that point is quite good for a bit of moral support. But then you'll get an invite to come back into the room, you'll get the outcome, there'll be a bit more chat, a bit of an overview of the work and various other observations, and then bang, it's over, everybody's said goodbye. And at that point, I wouldn't want the candidate to be on their own, because, you know, if the outcome is not what you were hoping for, or if there's some confusion over what was requested in terms of changes and why, or if you feel that you need to talk a bit more about these things, I think you do need some academic support. So I think it's a very good idea to have your supervisor or supervisors or various other colleagues on standby. You know, the Viva starts at 3, hoping it'll be over by 4. I might give you a bell at 4 to talk over the outcome. I think that's really important, because otherwise I would worry if someone's just left on their own, picking up the pieces of what may not have been for them a positive experience.
Okay. But our experience has been that actually it's been quite a positive experience, even if the outcome has been not as it's not been a minor modifications outcome, and the student is a little bit disappointed with the outcome. One of the things that I've noticed when I've been chairing the online Vivas is that it takes a little bit more time than usual to feel comfortable with the communication mechanism. So in the Vivas that I've chaired, I've asked the student to keep their microphone on, but the examiners to turn their microphones off unless they're asking a question. So that way there's the extraneous noise, any outside noises are limited. But I've noticed that it's a little bit daunting when you go into a Viva normally, and it's just that little bit more kind of almost like taking people aback to see all these faces on the screen in front of them. So don't be alarmed by that. At the University of Wolverhampton and the chairs training that we've given, that we've trained our chairs as online chairs, we've warned people that postgraduate researchers may need a little bit more time to kind of get used to the communication patterns and the communication styles. So those sort of getting to know you, getting used to the Viva sort of questions, examiners will have a couple of more up their sleeve in order to be able to help you calm down. But if you are overwhelmed by the situation, you just say so. Just tell the examiners and tell the chair. Nobody's going to judge you negatively for that, because this is all this is a new situation and a different situation for all of us.
And you need comfort breaks.
Yeah.
And put them in. I mean, typically in a standard face-to-face Viva, as the chair, after an hour and a bit, I would kind of want a 5, 10, 15-minute break in there. But in this circumstance, I think breaks as often as is necessary as possible. I mean, you shouldn't, the guidance is anyhow that you shouldn't spend down looking at a computer. You should take the 10 minutes of the hour as a break. So I think, break every hour or however often you want is very important. So, as I say, we have a lot of time to spare in terms of Vivas, and I think you must use those to make yourself as comfortable as possible.
So just to sum up then, we've practiced your using your platform. Make sure you're comfortable with it. Make sure that you're in a space that's comfortable and quiet and private, and that the people in your household are aware of how long you're going to be in the Viva, and that they either stay off the internet or keep quiet or whatever. That you've got somebody around to support you, and that you're aware that actually this is going to be slightly more taxing, and that you're aware of that, and that you know that the chair and the examiners are also aware of that, and you can ask for breaks and take breaks through the Viva should you wish to. Anything else you'd like to add, Ben?
Only to have a printed copy to hand if you can, to acknowledge that in terms of interactions in the Viva, I think you have to be quite careful to only speak when the other person's finished speaking, and then maybe to indicate that you finished speaking, because I think if people start speaking across each other, it's difficult at the best of times, but it becomes very difficult when it's online. And I suppose the other thing is, I've talked already about a room that you're comfortable in, but a Viva is still quite a formal event. So if you have clothes drying in the background, maybe move them out of the way. Don't be slumped back in some knackered old armchair wearing a t-shirt. It might still be good to present yourself as as formally as possible, I think, in some of those respects. I don't mean a suit, but I think a bit of tidying up might set the right impression.
Okay, and on that note, I'm going to draw this vlog to a close. So thank you very much for listening. As always, look out for our vlogs. We're going to try and release vlogs as often as we can on a Friday, as we used to. And if you like our vlogs, please do subscribe to our channel, and you'll get the notifications to say that a new vlog has been released. So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you again. Bye.
Bye.